Welcome back to the Man in the Middle show with Kevin and Joe. I'm Kevin Rogers. That is Joe, real deal DiRoma, right over there. Good to see you, Joe.
Hey man, what's going on?
Dude, kick us off with that amazing piece you sent me. Really struck me. I thought that's a great way for us to begin this episode.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm not the prestigious writer that my companion here is, Mr. Kevin Rogers, the copy chief himself, but I love flushing stuff out. And one of the things that you realize once you start getting into midlife is how much you enjoyed really doing the things you were doing when you were a kid or in high school or these things. So I was writing a lot when I was younger, writing a lot of poetry, and I've been doing a lot of that the last couple of years again. So yeah, just something I threw in my Apple Notes during a lunch break this week. It's titled "The Shit No One Else Wants to Do." The shit no one else wants to do. There's this silent battle we all face, and no one knows what's actually taking place in our own mind but us. And some of that shit will never see the light of day or be shared with any other person, what we consciously or unconsciously decided. Well, what happens then? What happens if we never let anyone really see us? Show them who we are, share with them what we really think. What then? Some never do it, ever. But why? Here's some of the answers I've I've heard throughout the years. I always get fucked over. The person leaves me. The relationship changes. They look at me differently. They won't understand. I don't want to bother them. And the list goes on, right? But here's the thing. When I look at this list, I see nothing but fear. So let's look at this list based on that. And for the sake of understanding, we'll keep it in the same order as above, right? I always get fucked over equals fear of betrayal. The person leaves me equals fear of abandonment. The relationship changes equals fear of change. They look at me differently equals fear of people thinking less of me. They won't understand equals fear of people thinking less of me. And I don't want to bother them equals fear of being loved. So the shit no one else wants to do is face their fears, like real fears, not this social media bullshit where we don't care what anyone thinks of me type nonsense. Not that, but real shit. Like, I'm afraid to show you and tell you who I really am because then you'll behave like an imperfect human just like me. And I just can't handle that. Everyone acts like they're so tough and they're so hard out here in public, but in fact, they're terrified. And for me, I got over it. I'm just not afraid to let people in. I'm not afraid to let them love me because nothing matters more than real connection. It's depth, it's importance, it's meaning, it's fulfillment. It's what we all really want. And we search for it in everything else, but in the work of fully showing up as ourselves and letting others decide if they're with us.
Mm.
So facing ourselves is the shit no one else wants to do, but I love it.
Man, strong, bro. Yeah. So, I mean, that is the choice we come to. And, we've talked a lot already in this show about the repercussions of not choosing to face ourselves. And then the harder choice, even to reveal what we find to others. It's, you know, uh, again, it's a guy problem because we're just not engineered, wired, shown, permissed to be vulnerable. That's the false risk. That feels like the biggest risk. Do not show vulnerability.
Because you'll be shamed.
Yeah. You'll be ostracized. You'll be,
Mhm.
yeah. Um, and so, and that's what leads to, you know, the suicide rate being what it is, and people just walking around. I like what you said about terrified. Um, you know, you see guys of a certain age holding on to that masculinity, and not that you can't be badass masculine, you know, but it's like there's a gentleness that you can see in people who have faced the middle and emerged from it with their new calling, with their true calling, or you know, their true self. There's a You can still have a lot of masculinity, and there's also a gentleness to it, a grace, perhaps. Yeah. And when you're not there yet and you're just posturing to protect your insides, it's like your little coat of armor out there, you know, and you can see very quickly where someone is in that process, I think.
Yeah. And so, like we were talking about, it comes down to choices, man.
Yeah.
It comes down to choices.
Yeah. Choosing to, you know, where I'm at, Joe, I am in the solitude part of my life, of my journey. Discussed how, you know, made the decision to seek solitude, uh, living a mile away from my family down the street, um, because I knew that it just was time and it had to happen. And you know, relationships are preserved to the best they can. Uh, Everything with my kids is great. That is very important. But I'm spending a tremendous amount of time alone. Um, and man, it's so interesting. I guess 1 week to the next seems to be the pattern of when you start to feel different or feel like you're making progress, right? But man, when you're in the thick of loneliness, which is the gateway to solitude. If you choose solitude to really discover who am I, what do I feel, what's important to me, what's not, what am I, what am I going through the motions with in this life that I've set up myself that no longer has meaning. It's easy to find meaning and embrace the importance of things that you've put yourself in a position to have in your life because it validates that you're doing something productive. But part of the middle passage for me, at least at 54, is a willingness to question all of that. And so when you're choose solitude, um, meaning, you know, I see people, I see my kids. Spent Sunday with a friend watching football, so it's not like I'm in total monk mode here, but um, a lot of time alone, sitting in quiet, meditating, reading, thinking, being in constant um, awareness of my energy. Is my energy frantic? Is it, you know, is it calm? And dude, loneliness will strike me in the strangest places sometimes. You know what triggers me for the deep loneliness? The grocery store. Kills me, the grocery store. And I can't quite put my finger on why. The obvious reasons is because so many times I went to the grocery store with my family when the kids were little and they're in the cart and they're, you know, the thing and it's just the mundane stuff that when you look back on it later in life is such a beautiful, simple, routine moment of watching your kids grow. And so it's, or maybe it's just the sad fact that I only need a single basket to get what I need. You know, I cook all my meals at home. I've got like 3 things that I eat. It's a routine. I prefer that. It's simple. In my fridge is only the things I'm using. There's no abundance. like you would in a family fridge or cupboards. And so I will just get these overwhelming bouts of deep loneliness. And I've learned to, work through them, and they will pass. And then week to week, they get a little more, the color of them shifts a little bit, and they start to feel a little more productive. And I can see that I'm reaching solitude beyond the loneliness.
Yeah, you're in a very different spot in terms of all of that than me.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
I'm full on freshman in high school and new baby on the way in
yeah,
7 weeks, which means the opposite of loneliness. It's
100%.
like it's like, can we just catch a breath here and
Yeah.
maybe take a moment to ourselves? Hold on, let me slide out the back door real quick and do a lap around the house. I'll be right back. That's it's like the
Yeah, you're
fucking path
nesting.
I'm on, buddy. Yeah, oh yeah. So, but what I will say though is that I do I do still now, my wife and I both prioritize that time to say, "Hey, I'm gonna go do this by myself.
Yeah, that's good.
Hey, I'm gonna like I ride my bike,
Mm,
road cycling, and it's very unless I'm doing a social ride, like I'm just by myself on a bike for 90 minutes to 3 hours or whatever, and
well,
that's very, very much an experience that is like you said, just kind of by yourself, man. And you're just
yeah,
with your
in your
thoughts
zone.
and yeah, and
Yeah.
you're in your zone. But I think the biggest thing that, based off of kind of what I penned up and what you're saying too is, and like exactly uh what I got from what you're experiencing, it stems a lot from what Hollis talks about in this midlife transition where you have to choose authenticity over comfort, right? And it's like I'm
Mhm.
choosing to finally step into fully being myself of who I am and what I want. And that's not always aligned with all these established roles that I've been playing for decades now
Right.
that brought me to this point. So it's like, for me, just like you, when I looked at that stuff and I'm sitting in it and I feel lonely as shit. Well, the what I discovered for me when I questioned that experience was I'm feeling this loneliness because I'm not who I thought I always was,
Mm,
right? I'm not playing the role that I've been playing for so long that it has become unconscious for me. So
mm,
now I'm choosing to be this new way of being for myself and my life and who I am. And it's totally foreign to me.
mm,
And one of the things that anytime I start something new, it is lonely because
mhm.
you're a beginner at it. You have no idea what the fuck you're doing. And it's like, okay, well, guess I'm going to have to try and figure all this stuff out. And
Right.
so, but I think more than anything, it's like when I'm in those positions, I'm always asking myself, what is this teaching me about myself?
Mhm.
What is okay, this emotion's coming up. This loneliness is coming up for me. What is this teaching me about myself? What is this teaching me about life? What is this teaching me about who I think I am?
Yeah.
And how can I look at this thing that I'm doing and say I want to go in this direction because I believe that this is me living in what I believe is totally fully myself. And whatever capacity of honest I could be at that moment, you
Right.
know?
Exactly.
And that's the thing is like
Yeah.
cuz I mean you and I have talked about this before like what I thought 10 years ago was like being super honest. Like I look back now and I'm like, dude, you were fucking full of shit, bro. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
there's just this constant layers of
Right.
removing
You don't even
and
know they're there. Yeah.
yeah, just unlearning, unknowing,
Right.
just so
And with you right now, there's just not a lot of space for Joe to sit and reflect. And you're in action mode.
oh
So,
yeah,
so
man.
you've been through this interesting evolution where your son is a teen, fully functional, basically person in a very important phase as a 15-year-old who can handle his own self, but also needs you in some ways more than ever. And now this brand new baby, which is just action mode to get everything handled and ready and go through the panic of bringing an infant into your life and loving it and allowing yourself the space to have all those emotions and all those experiences. And so, what do you think, Joe, is like the difference when you're having those moments, right? Okay, what do I do with this? Why am I feeling this way? You're like being introspective, trying to turn it into something productive, put it where it goes, but yet there's a ton of shit to be done. That's the real difference in I think what we're both experiencing. I have that with work right now. We're in a busy moment, but beyond that, I got nobody pinging me to do shit, and you got it coming from all sides right now.
Oh yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
what? How do you? So the bike rides. Do you journal? How else do you give yourself a minute to process all this, or are you just toughing it out?
Well, first of all, I've been on the path for of self-development and spiritual development for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And not like kind of doing it,
Mm-hmm.
like hard. Like I'm an addict. So like full force. Like, like, hey man, why don't you settle down a little bit? And I'm like, well, why don't you, go sit over there and do nothing like you normally do? So my intensity level, I also understand too, Kevin, is very different than I know than a lot of people as well.
Yeah.
It's and again, but so the thing that so when I first we were talking about meditating before. So when I first
Yeah.
started meditating in 2009, I was happy with having 5 to 10 seconds where my brain would shut off
Mm.
and not keep telling me what a piece of shit I was.
Wow.
And it was magical for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was the best thing. I'm like, wow, this thing can turn off.
Right.
Holy cow. And I've never been hey, let's go to the monastery and do a 6-hour meditation type guy.
Right.
I'm more so like, hey, let's do this thing for 10 to 30 minutes a day
Yeah.
for 15 years.
Right.
Okay. So then once you get to a space where you have made conscious choices to make the conscious unconscious, and you can it's like you sitting down to pen some copy, man. You can just you just have the ability to get into it once you start getting going.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
the same
You
thing
have
with
muscle
me with
memory.
right with focusing on shifting my disposition in order to show up in the most effective ways possible
Right.
because I've consciously been practicing that shit for
Yeah.
years and years and years. Now, like there are times where it bubbles over
Right.
and I let it out
Yeah.
and I'm angry and everyone here knows I'm angry and I'm unapologetically angry. Am I
Mm.
taking it out on people? No. Am I loud? Yes. Is it maybe kind of scary? Well, my dog shivering in the corner says yes. You know, but the reality is that I'm not suppressing my emotions and who I am today at all. I'm not
Yeah.
doing that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because all of these things that we have going on and all of these pressures. Like, I'll give you an example.
All right.
Yesterday, trying to launch a new product.
Yeah.
Now we're going to have to launch it today. Managing the team, managing all these moving pieces, getting all this product, everything launched, this book, boom. Same time, son has a concert that we bought tickets for, Weezer concert, by the
Yeah,
way.
Weezer.
Yeah. And it was in Orlando.
Yeah. Mm.
So pick him up from the bus stop, go pick up his sister in Pinellas, and then drive to Orlando in the car 3 hours
Mhm.
after already hammering all day,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Take my wife out to a date. Amazing. Have to drive then from Orlando to deep, almost to the beach and Pinellas, and then back up here where we live up in Pasco County.
Wow. Yeah.
Driving for basically 6 hours yesterday, doing all that stuff for my son for his birthday,
Yeah.
getting a product, like a lot of pressure,
Yeah.
right? Um, and the reality is that, like you said, you have to just show up the best that you can
Yeah.
imperfectly.
That's it.
That's it. That's
That's
all you
it.
can do.
That is really all you can do. And keep yourself. That's when the little lessons and practices of not losing your shit over something in traffic or you know what I mean. Just saying, okay, I'm aware. I was saying earlier about the energy level, just being in tune with your energy level. Like how kind of fucked is my energy right now, and if I'm aware of that, I'm not going to let something trigger it. That is external, right? Um, because you're in a perilous situation. You're driving a vehicle full of people you care about the most, and people are stupid and all
Yes.
around you. And so, you know what I see, by the way, not to detract, I saw the greatest snap video I've ever seen in my life. Have you seen this one where the guy steals the tow truck that's trying to tow his truck away?
No.
Greatest snap. Snaps fascinate me, by the way, when people just snap and completely lose their shit because you just go, man, what's this? Like, what led to this moment, right? The video starts, the tow truck driver's about to tow away his pickup truck. He's standing in uh, tow truck telling the other guy, lower that car, unleash that car. I'm warning you. And the guy won't do it. He gets in the tow truck with his own truck lifted on it, like the classic kind. The back wheels of the truck are still on the ground. Starts going down the street, dude, swiping every car he can, like a crowded city streets. Turns the corner fast enough to roll his own truck off the tow truck sideways, continues boom, 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 smashing every car he can. His truck finally falls off and he drives off in the tow truck. Dude, I mean, that's a snap. Like, I don't care about my car. I'm gonna smash everything I can on the way out of wherever the hell he decided to eventually go in a stolen tow truck. Right.
Yep.
And there's a guy who, whether he's been that way his whole life or life just got to him in every way it can to where he was gone. Total red lights
Oh
everywhere
yeah.
flashing. And I just wanted to pause there because I'm empathizing with that moment where work pressure. And when you're doing a launch, so people understand, a product launch, it has to go and it has to go right. And there's a million things. And so and you got a concert. You can't be late for the concert. You don't want to miss. You got dinner plans with your wife during the concert. All these things that can't be screwed up that are on a deadline. And that's, man, ripe territory for losing your shit.
Yeah. And here's what I'll tell you, Kev, is that I'm like getting all of this stuff prepared for us to leave. And my son has one shirt and his Weezer shirt that I got for him for the concert. still in the dryer. I go into the laundry room. The dryer door is open, been open all day since he left for school. I didn't know. And his bag, his cross country bag, is sitting on the floor upside down in front of the dryer.
So this laundry ain't ready.
No, his bag's not packed. His stuff's not ready.
Right.
So then, on top of all that, dad had to come in, get all of his stuff packed for him, put it in a bag. So here's the thing, right? When you pick him up from the bus stop, well, now it's time for the conversation, right? Now, somebody that's working on emotional regulation and spiritual development for 15 years knows that he has to take a pause
Yeah.
immediately when his energy enters this van, right, that we're in, or this SUV. And my thought was, this was my thought. How do you want to show up
Hmm.
for your son that has no idea he's about to get blindsided
Right.
with getting hit with a hammer?
Mm.
How do you want to show up? Because I let him get into the car. I let his stuff out, talk to me, welcome me. How was your day? All that stuff.
Mm.
And then I just turned around and I said, "Hey, just wanted to let you know. Remember when I bought that shirt for you on Tuesday?" And I said, "Hey, man, you may want to get that washed and prepared for the concert on Friday." He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Guess what I was doing at 3:15 today, right before I picked you up?" It's like packing your bag for you to go to a concert tonight. I'm like, "Are you 8 or are you 15?" You know? And it was like, and he saw the look in my
Mm.
face and he just knows. So I don't have to fly off the
Right.
handle because he knows me better than probably I know myself, probably, right? You
Yeah.
can read me like a freaking book. But it was like that one decision in those, and that, like, we talk about choices. That
Yeah.
one choice for me is, how do you want to show up?
Right.
Not, oh,
Yeah.
because then I'm not handling it in a destructive way, but I'm still
Yes.
coming across making a point in a very masculine way, a very assertive way,
Right.
but not overly aggressive and
Right.
destructive,
Let's
right?
not ruin the next 4 hours. Yeah. Because it's not necessary. Because you know what I learned through parenthood, uh, the last thing your kids want is to disappoint you. And so knowing they screwed up and were being all 15 and shit and didn't do the thing you asked is that information alone is, ooh, they're correcting themselves in real time too. It's just not on our same schedule because they're not us and they're just forming into human beings. Their brains are still shaping. Uh and it's but man, when you do snap and go crazy, it's just the consequence of that. It's a moment they'll never forget, their emotions behind it. You'll feel guilty of it forever. You'll want to somehow make it up. There's no going back, you know? And the hardest part about parenthood to me were those moments of regret when I was just not controlling myself, nothing too inglorious, but I remember one time being standing in line at a fast food restaurant. I was having one of those days, and the kids are being a little crazy, and it was one of those stop it like moments. Right, I'm in line. I forget which even of my kids. Maybe it was both of them. And I didn't realize a cop standing behind me, and he did the coolest thing. After he saw that happen, he just interacted with the kids in kind of a friendly way. And I think it was his way of like ending the moment of the tension, pulling me out of my head and it just trying to loosen the kids up. He could have handled that all kinds of ways. He could have put his hand on my shoulder. Everything okay here? Who the fuck are you to ask? Now I'm getting shot in the parking lot of a fucking Carver's. How'd that happen? Well, that snapped. And it was just one of those moments that, again, the subtleness of it really stuck with me forever. I felt like a shit heel right away. And it made me say, okay, like, and so it's every little instance of self-awareness when you behave in a way that you wish you hadn't, that prepares you to do better as life comes at you.
It's bringing what typically turns into unconscious programming into conscious choices. Mm-hmm. I don't know about what it was like for you growing up with your dad, but with my dad, it was like, hey man, don't be whistling in the car. I'm just like, a kid. And then I do it again and he's like, hey man, are you stupid?
Oh, wow.
I just said don't whistle in the car. You don't whistle in the car. It's bad luck. And I'm like, Dad, it's bad luck. He's like, yeah, don't whistle in the car, and then, but everything, it's just all these little things of being corrected all the time.
Right.
And everything was always handled with anger.
Yeah.
Everything.
Right.
So now it's been a lot of work for me facing my own shadow.
Yeah.
Of not handling everything with like that. Because whether or not you liked that when you were growing up, you take on those behaviors unconsciously
100%.
and you repeat them.
That's
until
right.
you make the unconscious conscious, which means you face the shadow, right? And that's the repressed parts of ourselves that influence our decisions unconsciously that we don't even know that are there. And that only happens, like I said, with that constant questioning of myself and assessing my own behavior of like, wow, where the hell did that come from? Now,
Right.
the good thing is that yesterday for me ended up being a huge win because I didn't treat my son like an asshole like my dad treated me,
Right. Yeah.
And so like yes I would but I also didn't repress my anger. I didn't say,
Yes.
I'm
And
like,
just eat it.
right,
I'll
just
just eat it and
shove it
stuff
down
it
and then
away. Yeah.
yeah, and then I'm driving a tow truck down the road smashing cars, right? Like cuz that's bro, that's what it is.
It is what it is. Yes.
It's the many freaking molehills.
Yes.
Tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, like you said, snap.
Snap. Yeah.
And then everyone's like, what's wrong with that guy?
Right. Now you got to undo that for the next, however long. Or it just pushes you further away from understanding because now nobody gets me and I'm the victim. It's like you're not even ready to take responsibility for it. So there's this constant self-evaluation, self-reflection, and yeah, understandable. But I don't know, Joe. Like, what's the challenge of you have to if you're going to take on life and you're going to go conquer, in business, in work life, like these things that we're wired to do and challenged to do and are fulfilling to accomplish, to earn money, provide safety, uh, develop some kind of status. Again, the things that all we're told are the responsibility of a person rising up through the first adulthood. Um, you can't be meek and accomplish those things.
No. No, you're absolutely right. I have been this year especially, I've been very tough on my son. when it comes to personal responsibility, and it comes to taking a look at the things that he needs to do in terms of uh, suffering for the sake of growth,
Yeah.
and 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 applying a lot of pressure. And we talk about choices, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, it's a lot easier for me and comfortable for me to not put constant pressure on him.
Sure. 100%.
So then I'm always having, for me, to get out of my comfort zone to do that,
Right.
knowing, still knowing that that's the best thing that I can do possible to set him up to be prepared for life and independent and not dependent upon me and others, to be
Right.
a man in this world. And I always talk to him about, listen, man, the world is hard. Life is difficult. And there's going to be a lot of things on your plate. And we have very open conversations, man, about this transition that he's in,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I'm in midlife transition. He's in childhood to
Yep.
adulthood right now. We're going through
Yeah.
these things at the same time. He's
Yeah.
going childhood to first adulthood. I'm
Yeah.
going first adulthood to second adulthood. These are both rough times. They are not easy, right? Because, like you said in earlier episodes, men at our age are killing themselves, but they're second behind people in the first transition, and
Yeah.
that's teenagers,
That's right.
because it's so hard. It's a death, right? So,
Right. Yeah.
but I'm trying to prepare him. So my choice every day is, I'm riding his ass
Hmm.
in everything.
Hmm.
Everything. Not that he still doesn't have fun and we don't laugh and joke and we don't have that stuff. But when it comes to the choices he's making, the work he needs to be putting in, and the things that he himself is in control of, there is constant pressure being applied to to facilitate that growth within him that's necessary for him to go out there.
Yeah.
And that shit is hard, bro.
It's hard. Um, it's interesting because I took a different approach, specifically because my son's number one goal and passion was music. And uh I knew if or believed that if it became a chore, uh he would abandon it, or was more likely to abandon it. And it brought him such joy, and he was so self-motivated that my wife and I said, well, let's just support him and let him, because this is a creative endeavor. And yes, life's going to be so. My son is super conscientious, has, I think, wisdom beyond his years, but he did not. I could have done a better job of setting him up for how this is going to. You know what I used to say, and I'm going on my experience. I would always tell him, "Hey, your 20s are for breaking shit. Like, just go try stuff and fail, break hearts, break your own heart, break promises, break, not because it's time to be an asshole, but you're going to learn from making mistakes. That
Yeah.
that's not something I do. I don't want that in my character." And that's what my 20s was for me. In my 20s, I discovered that I am just not a liar. I never get away with it. I suck at it. It doesn't feel good. And I would much rather face the immediate consequence of the truth of the dumb thing I just did than ever try to lie my way out of it. So that was an important life lesson. Like all these things. Um, and Yeah, so it's interesting, Joe. Um, but I definitely, he's getting there. Maybe the question, The question is like, how much do you let them learn for themselves, and how much can you warn them and prepare them for what they're actually looking at in any situation?
Hmm, that's an interesting question. I like that question because he's responsible for his results.
Mm-hmm.
He's responsible for how he shows up.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Yeah.
responsible for the effort that he puts in. He's responsible for whatever grades he might get. I'm not a big grades guy. You
Yeah.
know, no one's ever asked me what I got on a ninth grade math test in my entire life, except my mom when I was in ninth grade. So I really don't give a fuck about that shit.
Yeah.
But what I give uh, two shits about is that he's applying himself and he's fully showing up in the experience of what he's doing right now.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm teaching him. And I
Yeah.
make it very clear to him, listen, man, you don't have any learning disabilities. You're you got a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
Okay. You're incredibly good looking. You have a super high intelligence. You have charisma. You have talent. I said, and you're incredibly healthy. I'm like, you literally won the lottery, bro.
Yeah.
I'm like, so not playing your hand, not handing in the winning ticket by not showing up for yourself and your full potential, that's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
teach him. Right. So then there's these things that we're battling against. And I'm going to take a little bit of a turn here to just kind of pinpoint something that else, a choice that we made that's been very difficult, bro. And, you know, one of the things that Hollis focuses so much on his book is how much societal pressures play a role in, you know, our decision making
Yeah.
and and how hard it is to deviate from that.
Yes.
3 weeks ago, uh, we pulled the phone in video games Sunday through Thursday. Not allowed to use the phone other than call and text,
Wow.
and not allowed to be on computer games
For your 15-year-old son,
for my
who's been
15-year-old
who's
son.
been doing those activities since he was what? At least a couple years.
Yep, a
Mm-hmm.
while.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is another choice where it's not easy, but it's necessary because these freaking things, bro, are basically like handing teenagers lines of cocaine.
It is.
That's how it is for the brain, right? And that's what
Yeah.
we've discovered now. We didn't know that when they first came out, when he was just a child, and you're like, oh, hand the kid a screen. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great babysitter, blah, blah, blah. We
Yeah.
know what it does now. In the 3 weeks since well, first of all, he hated me the first
Yeah.
week.
Sure. Ruining his life, man.
Second week, you know, got a little bit better. This past week, he's like a different person.
Wow.
Totally different person. Not depressed, not down in the dumps, doing puzzles on our table,
Mm.
you know, just very lively, into his practices driving more, into his cross country running more, getting focused, doing all of his actual schoolwork and focused on that. And it's literally like a different person. And one of the reasons that we made this change as well is because if someone shows my newborn child or my toddler once she's born a screen, I'm going to slap the phone or the iPad out of their hands, and they're going to look at me like, what's wrong with you? And I'll be like, what's wrong with you? Just because everyone's doing something
Yeah.
doesn't make it right. And as somebody that actually did love cocaine, like the stuff you actually pound up your nose, I already know what the phone is like and what it can do to your life. And we're
Mm.
watching it in real time. But again, that, like we talked about, risky choices, bro, that is risky, bro.
Mm.
I'm risking my son hating my guts forever. You know, like I'm risking all of this freaking blowback from people in my family and society
Yeah.
pushing back. but the reality is that this is what we've decided is most authentic selves for us and our life and what we want to do and
Hmm.
really start living in the world, you know? And it's
Yeah.
hard, bro.
Yeah, but I commend you so much for that, dude. It is a heartbreak for people of our generations. I think we're in the same generation. You're X, right?
I'm like on the cusp of X and millennial,
Okay. So,
like in this
pe-
weird little
but
mix.
but people who had a life before electronics and we didn't have something in our pocket constantly telling us what to do next and where to be or where are you? Remember getting fucking lost in a day? Get on your bike with your buddies like a gang and just go tear up, a 5 mile radius and build a ramp and try to jump someone's hedges. And one guy has to ride in your handlebars because he broke his ankle. Talk about figuring out life and grappling with life in real time. Man, it is a heartbreak to see kids uh, so distracted by their phones that they wouldn't think to go do that. There's an indoor place to do everything now with a cover charge that we used to do for free and have way more fun and learn way more about ourselves doing it, right?
Wow. Wow. That was a heater right there. That is the truth, bro.
I mean, it's so organized and it's so sterile and it's so holy shit. And you go in there and there's some music and there's stimulation. It's like we don't even realize when I go outside, Joe. When I told you I've been like trapping myself in this house doing this work, I'll walk outside for 5 minutes and I'll just stand there and I'll feel the sun on my skin and I'll just listen to the sounds.
Hmm.
Whatever, if it's the middle of the day, there's not a ton of birds, but just the wind and I mean, life. You don't need any more entertainment than. I've never been an outdoors person. I'd love to get into that more, like because they people who are super outdoorsy must be going like, "What you fucking idiots doing? Like, life is out here. All the adventure you need is happening right around you. Like, go get in it, right?" Um, but I commend you for that, dude, because you know what? It is risky, but it's also yes, because more so, I think the pressures come from the other people. Oh my God, they did that to him. Wow, his dad's a dick. Wow, man, he's extreme. But already in 3 weeks, Damien is experiencing more life, getting out of his head. I bet, and I think I've read this many times from these studies, kids who did grow up without phones, they never regret it. They're always thankful for it because they got to process their own thoughts. You're giving him a gift, dude. But yes, it absolutely falls into this category of risky choices. No way was he going to hate you for it. No way long term.
Not long term.
But
Not
immediately, yes. It's like we're
sure.
saying, I love this thing of, like you said in the car, it's like, how do I want this to be received? Right. And so let me ask you this. How did you go about this? We know what you did in the car, smaller thing. You still like were calculated about it. How did you approach this big announcement?
Yeah, I went about it the way of I know that this doesn't sound cool. This is definitely abnormal. And this definitely is really hard. But I love you so much that I'm willing to risk you hating me for a while. I'm willing to be judged by other people and our family and our friends. And I'm willing to put pressure on myself every day to stay consistent on this. That's the hardest part
Sure.
is not letting on the gas on the consistency.
Yeah.
Oh, he's been so good. And
Right.
I said, buddy, I'm risking all of that just to say, hey, I know that this is what's best for you. And I'm like, honestly, buddy, he's a super logical kid. Like I love it. He's very logical. Okay. So I'm like, so then I took the approach like, hey, if one of your friends was addicted to something, would you tell them to keep using it? He's like,
Mm-hmm.
no. I'm like, okay, you're addicted to your phone. If you see somebody that's addicted to something, and now you're 15, so you live in my house, so I can be like, you're not getting that anymore, especially since I fucking pay for it. But I'm like, I'm taking that away from you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm equipped in those conversations to be able to have a very solid approach in terms of how that's delivered and
Yeah.
making it be the most effective way possible for him to receive it, because I know him. I know how he likes to receive information. I also know how he thinks and processes things. So I deliver it to him in a way that's going to be easiest for him to understand, right? Then
Yeah.
he's going to have to go through his own process
Right.
of managing all of that and what that actually means. The second half of it was also the fact of his baby sister's getting ready to come into the world soon. And we're all making these changes as a family as well, because again, when he was a baby, we didn't have all of the research on the phones that we have now.
Right. Right.
I said, buddy, we now know better, so we have to do better.
Mm, that's great.
Or we can just keep going on the way that we're going and not interact, not have family dinners. You be alone in your room 2 to 3 hours a night. I never see my kid. And we just don't have a relationship for the next 4 years until you're gone. And then I'm like, damn, man, this sucks, you know? So I'm going to put in the hard work short term right now so that I can have delayed gratification and the lasting fulfillment that I really, really want. Right.
Mm,
God, bro, it's fucking hard, man.
I know.
Like it was kind of gut wrenching to
Mm.
like just see his reaction.
Oh yeah.
It
Breaking your
was
kid's
like,
heart is a
oh,
yeah.
dude. So, but again, I think the biggest thing, and it goes back to kind of what you were talking about, and I want to hear more about kind of what you're experiencing, because this has been about what I've had going on lately and my stuff and making choices.
Well,
Like,
that's
what are the things that you're doing right now that sitting with that loneliness transition that you're in right now, like what are the tough choices that you're having to make right now and dealing with that and dealing with this new space and living alone now and everything, dude, everything in your whole life has changed.
yeah, right. Uh Similar to what you said, it's committing to it and staying on track and giving myself time to I don't know if it's what I'm doing is right or not.
Ooh,
I don't know. There's no way to know.
yeah, that's
It's my choice. I've I hasten to use the word abandon, but I abandoned everything I had agreed to uh, in the way that I was doing it. That is a big, big decision to say, I know there's a way this goes, and it's kind of how we've been doing it for 25 years. And it seems it's gone really well, but I'm restless and I need something different. And this is really eating at me. So I'm gonna just be down the street. I'll just be chilling there. Y'all can come by. I mean, what? So yeah, same kind of thing. Like that dude's crazy. He lost it. Maybe he'll come back. Maybe he's gonna wander away. Maybe we don't know. Um,
Is Kevin gone crazy?
yeah. Is he suicidal? Is this depression that we don't recognize? Um, and then wondering those things yourself in certain moments when the emotion gets really heavy. Is like, is this how it's going to be forever? Is this what I'm asking for? Is this what I am seeking? Loneliness and solitude and quiet and you know, but thanks for, this is why the Hollis book, Man in Middle Passage, every time I go back to it, I am reaffirmed that this is so natural and necessary. And there's a way you can do it that does not harm everybody. Yes, there's harm, particularly to my wife. She's completely heartbroken. I'm heartbroken. We show it in different ways. And it's just, Joe, would be so much easier to go back to what it was, to run to safety. I've done it twice already in this 6 weeks, 7 weeks. And it feels so, it's such a relief in the moment to be back at a place that you recognize, that you understand. But then the closer I get to that, I am reminded that I took a long time to make this choice. That I waited and hoped and tried to manufacture change so that it would not be this way, so that I wouldn't be led to this decision. And I don't think that's going to change. And so now I'm on the side of it where, well, thank God that she's a world-class human being and she's going to be fine. And she's also been incredibly understanding and supportive to the best of her ability amidst this heartbreak that she did not ask for. Man, that's a lot to be thankful for right there.
Yeah.
That, yes, there's been moments of drama, understandably, but relatively low overall. And so I've been afforded this. I made a very tough choice. Nothing with, everything's, nothing broke in ways I couldn't have predicted. And now it's just about, well, what are you doing? So what is next? So my therapist keeps saying, get a calendar and keep looking 30 days ahead. Where are you going to be? What are you going to be doing? What's going to be different? 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years. No, what do you say? 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 years, something like that. Like where do you see yourself? And I just don't know. I'm beginning to form a picture of that. But I think when couples separate, it's to end what's happening now, not always to begin something new. If there's cheating involved and you think I fell in love with this other person and oh my God, I just want to be with them, I guess that's different. I feel bad about somebody in that situation because they have to go through all this tumult and go try to start a new relationship. And you know how it is, man, when I just assume if people are having an affair, they're comfortable in that arrangement, the sneaking around, the clandestine things. And all of a sudden it's like, no, we need to be together. Then you move in together and you're like, hey, there you are again. Haha. All it's not like a spy novel anymore. I guess we just live together now, huh? It's like, good luck. Like, how's that gonna, you know what I mean? It's like you ever have a buddy at work, you're like, dude, I love this guy. And then you go to a ball game and it's just totally awkward because you're no longer like in the context of the work environment. You're not making fun of Al from accounting. And it's just like, we have nothing in common. So, there was nothing I was running to. There were only things I wanted to move away from and then had to go find out what's out there. And I don't have answers to those questions. I'm just existing and I'm exploring and I'm giving myself the space that I desperately needed and wanted and craved. And there have been moments of that are incredible. I might have told you I had a week ago, last Saturday. I woke up, I wrote that article, I went to the gym, and I'm leaving the gym and I'm like, I have nowhere to be. Nobody knows where I am. Nobody cares where I am. This is what I dreamed of when work was so busy and it just felt like you'd see somebody lollygagging through the store or something. You're like, man, can we trade places just for an hour? I want to be doing the nothing that you're doing right now because I got 20 things. And I had one of those days and it really felt amazing. So I think that's the manifestation of solitude. It doesn't look like sitting still and doing nothing. It looks like freedom to do whatever the hell you want to do that day. So that's what I'm going through. I think I'm in this period of, okay, I didn't really break anything. Nobody hates me, thank God. This is beginning to produce what I hoped it would, and now she is starting to see what it can. And I just know we're both going to be better for it on the other side. I have zero doubt about that, and that we will retain a healthy relationship um, at some point. And so now the big question is, well, why and where and what? And I don't need answers to those yet. I'm just being in the now.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of what Hollis talks about in the middle passage, um, where his big argument is that, like true growth is it requires making those difficult choices
Yeah,
that challenge the safety of the old patterns that ultimately lead to a more authentic life.
man. Yeah.
And
And
so when you were saying that, that's what surfaced for me.
yeah,
And I think a lot of times, to your point, people jump into the sack with somebody else and they don't allow themselves to really sit and feel what it is that they actually lost. Because to think that a 25-year marriage is not like losing a loved one is
yeah,
straight up delusional,
yeah,
because
yeah.
the body and the soul and the mind treated emotionally the same way as if you lost a loved one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's a deep, deep loss. And it's highly important that we hold space for sadness within that, for grieving, for all of those things that we don't necessarily always want to go to. But it's important that we bow down in reverence for what the meaning of that experience brought to me, and
Yeah,
to and to pay tribute to that loss. That doesn't mean that,
right.
like, we just sit in that shit forever and we're, like we were joking about at your house, like down in the dumps, listening to freaking Alice and Shane unplugged, and just like, like
Right.
boozing myself, like that's not what we're doing. But like, to not allow yourself to experience all of that, and to transition in through the grieving process into the more authentic life as a result of the choice that you made,
Yeah.
is to really not honor the decision that you made, right?
Yes. Right. Good point. Good point.
And
Oh, that's
also,
right.
the other thing I'll say real quick is, like, you know, I treated it like normal, like I always do. I treated it just like I did with drugs, man. And it was like, nope, I can't keep going back, man. Come on, man. I just want to go back and get a hit. I want to get a hit of that old safety and those old patterns, that old feel good. You know what I mean? Just give me a hit, man. And it was like, I had to practice complete abstinence from that shit.
Yeah.
You never have zero because you have children with the person, but you don't go back like, oh, just get a little taste. Let me get a little hit.
Yeah.
No, you
Yeah.
complete
Yeah.
abstinence is the only way to move forward
Yeah.
and grow, from my experience. Because
No,
I,
it's
again,
true.
I went through similar.
And that's where it is now. I want to read a paragraph from um, On the High Seas and Alone, chapter 6 of Middle Passage. This really struck me yesterday. It is exactly what we're talking about. To find and follow one's passion is not necessarily to take off as Gauguin did to Tahiti. For there are commitments to honor, people whose lives are affected by our decisions, and something to say for staying a course to which we have a moral responsibility. Yet we are still obliged to live our passion, lest our lives remain trivial and provisional, as if someday all would become clear and choices easy. Life is seldom clear and easy, yet choice is what defines and validates a life.
Powerful, man. Powerful. I say we end it there. Hopefully questions are bubbling up in all of you from what Kevin just read from the middle passage by Dr. James Hollis. And Kevin, you said that's chapter 6.
Chapter 6. Yep. On the high seas and alone is the chapter.
On the high seas and alone. All been there. So think about that. Thank you all for joining us. And we will see you again very soon. And hey, be on the lookout as well. You know, Kevin said, you know, this past week he penned that article. Well, we're pairing a newsletter with this podcast for those of you that like to consume in a reading medium. And Kevin is an exquisite writer, and I was just blown away with his first penning of his first article this week. So I'm his biggest fan in terms of reading this stuff week to week, and I hope all of you will subscribe to the newsletter just like you subscribe to this podcast, and most of all, share it with somebody else that needs it. Both of them. Okay. So thanks, guys. Kevin.
Thank you, Joe. Great talk, man.
Great as always, man. See you guys.